Disneyland's look did not come from Walt Disney's imagination alone. In fact, his Imagineers borrowed from centuries of art history to weave inspiration and influences that you would not have expected into the DNA of Disneyland's visual style. I'm David Block, and welcome back to Designed in the Wild. In this episode, we'll uncover those hidden influences, and I'll show you how they've shaped the park that we know today. When you first walk into Disneyland, Main Street, USA wraps you in a turn-of-the-century charm, and that's no accident. You've probably heard that Walt Disney's inspiration for Main Street came from his hometown of Marceline, Missouri. But you might not know that a lot of the look also came from Fort Collins, Colorado, the hometown of Imagineer Harper Goff. Goff, who was a Hollywood art director on films like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, brought in photos of Fort Collins' Victorian-era City Hall, bank, and storefronts. Many of those details ended up directly in Main Street's facades. The style you find here comes from the Victorian architecture of the late 1800s, when buildings were designed to impress from every angle. Victorian design was about craftsmanship, complexity, and color. Roof lines had decorative trim, windows were framed with carved moldings, and storefronts were dressed in bold, layered paint schemes. The motto was basically, "Leave no surface undecorated." In graphic design, Victorian influence showed up in ornate typefaces, elaborate borders, and layouts filled with flourishes. Posters and advertisements often combined several fonts in one piece: script for elegance, slab serif for impact, and added gold leaf for drop shadows to make the text pop. Even everyday items like packaging and letterheads carried this high level of detail. Disney's Imagineers brought all of that to Main Street: gold leaf lettering on shop windows, awnings in rich stripes, and signage with multi-layered borders and carved details. Look at the typography. You'll see bold serif fonts with curled terminals, shadows, and decorative accents that echo the style of Victorian-era playbills and shop signs. Victorian style communicates tradition, pride, and attention to detail. It works well when you want to signal heritage or create a sense of handcraft quality. But it's easy to overwhelm a design with too much detail. The trick is to balance ornamentation with readability. From the elegance of Victorian design on Main Street, we're going into a totally different mood. One of adventure and far-off places. Adventureland was designed to capture the romance of far-off places as imagined in the mid-20th century. Its look is built on several influences: Polynesian style, African and Asian marketplace architecture, and the golden age of travel posters from the 1920s to the 1950s. Those posters were bold, colorful, and idealized, selling the dream of exotic destinations to Western travelers. Imagineers used this visual language to create vibrant sign colors, tropical patterns, and layered textures that feel handcrafted and full of life. Underneath that, there's also a borrowed principle from Baroque art of the 1600s, a love of drama, rich detail, and strong light-dark contrast. Even though the carvings and motifs here aren't Baroque in subject matter, the technique of spotlighting key elements against shadowed backgrounds is the same. It creates a sense of focus and drama that makes each sign or facade feel like part of a stage set. In graphic design, this combination of influences translates to layouts with a clear focal point, vivid colors, and framing that draws the eye inward. A good comparison is a vintage travel poster where the central scene pops against a deep, contrasting background, often enclosed in an ornate border or frame. You can build this same idea into your own work. Start by thinking about the styles or influences that could strengthen your message. Then look for ways to combine them in a single unified design. For example, here in Adventureland, Imagineers blended the texture and warmth of Polynesian craft, the bold optimism of vintage travel posters, and dramatic light and shadow of Baroque art. In your own projects, choose elements that work toward the same mood and story, and you'll create designs that feel intentional, immersive, and uniquely yours. If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to hit that like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you. From the layered textures and vibrant colors of Adventureland, we move into a land that trades tropical energy for old-world elegance, where every balcony, sign, and facade is designed to charm you with intricate detail. New Orleans Square takes its cues from Rococo, a style from the 18th century France known for being light, decorative, and playful. Where Baroque design was all about making a big dramatic statement with big colors, heavy details, and high contrast, Rococo took a softer, more personal approach. It used lighter colors, delicate curves, and fine details to create a feeling of elegance and comfort. Instead of overwhelming you with grandeur, Rococo aimed to make a space feel inviting, charming, and full of personality. Imagineers brought this to life with delicate wrought iron balconies, scrolling patterns in railings, and pastel facades that catch the sunlight. Shop signs curve gracefully with typography that feels hand-drawn rather than rigid. Every element whispers refinement rather than shouts for attention. In graphic design, Rococo influence appears in fluid ornamental typefaces, swirling borders, and light, airy color palettes. Soft blues, pale pinks, creams, and golds. It's a style that uses detail to charm, not overwhelm. You'll often see asymmetry where one side of a composition might have more flourish than the other, giving it a lively, organic feel. Rococo shows us that details don't always have to be big and dramatic to make an impact. They can be warm and inviting too, using lighter colors, gentle curves, and decorations that feel handcrafted or personal can give your design a sense of comfort and elegance. If you want your work to feel friendly, beautiful, and a little fancy without being over the top, Rococo is a style that's worth studying. Leaving the city's ornate charm, we now head into the countryside where handmade crafts take center stage. Bayou Country's look was grounded in American folk art, an art created by everyday people using local materials and hand tools, but folk art actually has deeper roots. It evolved from European decorative arts brought to the Americas in the 1600s and the 1700s, where settlers adapted styles from their home countries to live life on the frontier. In the New Orleans area, these influences blended with French, Spanish, African, and Caribbean decorative traditions, producing a style that celebrates pattern, texture, and personal storytelling. This is why you'll see a mix of hand-painted signs, carved wood details, and colorful nature-inspired motifs here. In graphic design, you can see the folk art influence in brush lettering, simple but strong geometric patterns, and a sense of handmade imperfection. Colors tend to be warm and earthy, ochres, deep greens, brick reds, and designs often favor personality over symmetry. A good comparison would be a hand-painted produce sign at a farmer's market. It may not be perfect, but it's filled with charm and authenticity. Folk art shows that a design doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Its impact comes from being honest, personal, and tied to the community it represents. When a design clearly reflects its place and the people who made it, it can be more memorable than something that's polished but feels impersonal. From rustic Americana, we jump to a galaxy far, far away to Disneyland's newest land, and you'll find some really interesting art history inspiration here. Galaxy's Edge doesn't just imagine another planet, it imagines an entire culture. And the design work here blends Art Deco elegance with the bold forward thinking of Futurism. Art Deco emerged in the 1920s and 30s, defined by clean geometry, symmetry, and a love of streamlined ornamentation. It showed up in everything from skyscraper facades to luxury travel posters with repeating patterns, stepped forms, and stylized typography. Deco design was meant to feel modern and glamorous, like the future had already arrived. Futurism, on the other hand, started earlier, in the early 1900s, and it wasn't about elegance. Futurism celebrated speed, technology, and industrial power. Futurist artists used diagonal lines, motion blurs, and overlapping layers to create a feeling of movement and progress. In Galaxy's Edge, Imagineers took the structured precision of Art Deco, especially in signage and lettering, and merged it with the rugged, layered surfaces of a lived-in sci-fi world. The Arabesh type, which is a Star Wars font, has the geometric clarity of Deco lettering, while the architecture uses stacked, stepped forms common in Art Deco buildings. But the finishes are weathered and worn, hinting at centuries of use. The spire structures even suggest futurist energy stretching upward as if reaching toward space. In graphic design, this kind of fusion is a way to balance order with energy. Crisp, geometric type, and symmetrical layouts paired with textures, angled elements, or gradients that imply motion. It's especially effective in branding for technology, travel, or entertainment. Art Deco brings structure and a sense of style. Futurism adds energy and the feeling of moving forward. When you use them together, they can tell stories about progress, exploration, and adventure, while still feeling warm and exciting instead of cold or unwelcoming. And back on Earth, the Old West is waiting. Frontierland was inspired by American regionalism, which was an art movement from the 1930s that celebrated small-town life in rural communities during the Great Depression. It was based on an earlier movement called realism, which aimed to show life as it really was. When American artists used that same style to paint their farms, towns, and industries, regionalism was born. A style that was centered around the people, places, and work that made up the heart of the country. Disney's Imagineers brought that regionalist spirit to Frontierland with weathered wooden buildings, bold but simple lettering, and images that connected directly to the land and its history. The Golden Horseshoe Saloon sign uses plain serif letters with gold accents to give it a classic look, while the Big Thunder Mountain sign pairs large, easy-to-read type with mining tools and rock textures, similar to posters from the 1930s that celebrated American natural beauty and industries. In graphic design, regionalism shows up in strong, straightforward layouts, hand-painted lettering without extra decoration, and images tied to a specific place like barns, railroads, farms, and mines. The colors often come from nature, such as the dark brown of wood, the dusty red of clay, or the golden yellow of wheat or sunset. Regionalism is about showing pride in community. When your design reflects the land, history, and values of the people it's made for, it feels authentic and trustworthy, something your audience can connect with right away. From the rough, rugged look of the frontier, we jump into a world of pure imagination filled with bright colors, bold shapes, and over-the-top details. Mickey's Toontown feels like you're walking through a cartoon, and of course, that's on purpose. It's modeled after the golden age of animation in the 1930s and 40s, when Disney and other animation studios used this rubber hose style of animation. With rounded corners, flowing curves, and tilted shapes, rubber hose animation made everything feel alive. In Toontown, the buildings lean, the windows bulge, and nothing is perfectly straight, just like the old cartoons from that era. The other big influence that we see here is pop art from the 1950s and 60s. Pop art celebrated popular culture with bright, flat colors, thick outlines, and simple forms. The same look that you'd find in comic books or advertisements at the time. You can really see it in the signage all around Toontown that uses oversized block letters, large areas of solid colors, and high contrast combinations like red and yellow or blue and white. Put the two styles together and you get something that feels fun, easy to read, and full of energy. The pop art side grabs your attention while the animation-inspired shapes make the land feel alive, like you've stepped straight into an animated world. After the cartoon fun of Toontown, we step into the heart of Disney's magic. A world of fairy tales shaped by hundreds of years of European art. Fantasyland is Disney's storybook heart, designed in the Gothic Revival style. This movement, popular in the 1800s, revived the look of medieval Europe with tall pointed arches, soaring spires, detailed stonework, and colorful stained glass. Artists and architects of the time used these features to make buildings feel historic, spiritual, and larger than life. And Disney carried that same look into Fantasyland. Disney's Imagineers took that romanticized medieval look and layered it with color, pattern, and whimsical proportions to make it feel welcoming to families. The pointed spires of Sleeping Beauty Castle, the fine stonework surrounding every window, and the heraldic banners all reference Gothic Revival, but with a lighter fairy tale twist. In graphic design, Gothic Revival shows up in black-letter typefaces, shield-shaped frames, and tall layouts that draw your eye upward. You will also see decorative borders, fleur-de-lis patterns, and jewel-toned colors like deep blue, red, and gold. Disney applies these traits across Fantasyland, from attraction signs to marquees to even trash cans, creating a consistent visual language. This style is all about creating a sense of romance and importance, which is why Fantasyland feels like stepping into a classic fairy tale. And we end our journey by exploring a version of the future that was envisioned in the 1950s and 60s. Tomorrowland gets its style from mid-century modern design, with its clean lines, bold shapes, and optimistic view of technology and progress. It grew during the space age when rockets, satellites, and futuristic architecture were symbols of hope and possibility. As you walk through Tomorrowland, you can see the mid-century modern influence in the sweeping shapes of Space Mountain, the clean, simple lettering on attraction signs, and the use of geometric shapes as both decoration and structure. Materials like brushed aluminum, white concrete, and glass are paired with pops of bright color and inspired by the era's love of innovation and sleek design. In graphic design, mid-century modern influence means simple, uncluttered layouts, flat color fields, and bold but minimal typography. Designers of the time often used grids, modular shapes, and abstract space-age icons like boomerangs, starbursts, and planetary rings to evoke the future without overwhelming the viewer. Tomorrowland carries these traits into its signage, wayfinding, and promotional posters. The mid-century modern style proves that less is more. By cutting out extra decoration and focusing on simple shapes, clear balance, and strong color, you can create retro designs that still feel fresh and modern even decades later. Art history is not just about the past. It's where many of the styles and designs that we still use today began. Disney Imagineers understood this, and they designed every land in this park using these styles as a foundation. That's why Main Street feels so real, Adventureland feels so adventurous, and every land has its own unique personality. Join me next time as we hunt down more fundamentals of design on Designed in the Wild. I'm not just a graphic designer and a high school teacher, I am also an author. I wrote a book called The Dragon Codex, Quest for the Relics of Design. This is a great story about 3 young dragons who have to learn graphic design to save the world from creative destruction. It's a book for young adults, and it's a story about family, it's a story about friendships, and a story about finding your place in the world. Pick up a copy today, I know you'll love it.